Everybody online? You guys all ready? Let's get this party started. Hi, everybody. Thank you for all coming. We will call this meeting of the Centennial School Budget Committee meeting to order. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for this evening? All right. And everybody in favor? Aye? We all good? Aye. All right. Thank you all so much for that. Item 2.0, we'll go with introductions. We have a potential new member. Mary Stegman is in the house. She's present. Yep. Thank you for participating, Mary. Yep. It's not officially official, but it probably will be in about 2 hours. All right. Moving on to item 3.0, reports. 3.1, budget conditions statewide. I will hand it off to Superintendent Owens.
Good to see everyone this evening. It's good to see people in person. I know we've done the budget committee virtually for the last few years, so it's nice to have folks attending in person. And I also see that we have some folks attending virtually as well. So we've got a little bit of a hybrid approach this evening. I will go ahead. We're going to do a little hot potato here for a bit. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Southerton. He's our Director of Business and Operations. He's going to lead us off. And then between he and I, we will go ahead and walk us through our agenda this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you, Superintendent Owen. So yeah, as James said, it's wonderful to see budget committee members in person. Some of you for the first time, although we've worked with each other now, or I've been serving on this committee for multiple years. This is the first meeting that we've offered an in-person attendance since I've been here in the pandemic. So great to see people in line or online and in person as well. Superintendent Owens will kick things off, and he'll be discussing statewide conditions that all districts are experiencing in Oregon. He'll also discuss state school fund support levels, the student investment account update, and Centennial School District specific conditions. Then I'll take over and we'll talk about the roles, responsibilities, and the actual process of receiving a proposed budget and considering approval. You, as the governing body for the budget, are the ones that would ultimately be responsible for giving us priorities and receiving the budget and then deciding if it meets with the priorities and should be approved. The administration does not approve the budget. It actually is the budget committee made up of equal parts of committee members and the board that will ultimately decide whether or not we have a budget for next year. To help inform you, I'll be discussing the year-to-date results. So 23-24 school year is well underway, and we've got some early results to share. And then discuss the forecasts of the model that we'll be using, a forecast for the model that we'll be using to build the 24-25 budget. Lastly, it'll be the main event for the evening, which is what are the budget priorities that we should consider when we're building the proposed budget that we'll bring back to you in April to consider approving. And then we have calendar reminders, which I always find helpful. What are the additional times that we'll be getting together and meeting? So with that, I will pass things back to Superintendent Owens.
All right, this evening we are balancing the fact that we have this budget committee stacked up against our board meeting. And so we do have about an hour for our meeting, and I'm also going to balance being informative and also not too detailed in terms of jargon. That's going to be hard to do. There's a lot of information for us to share this evening. I'm going to try to keep it fairly high level, and what my portion is going to be about is about statewide conditions and then how those conditions pertain to our district and how they're going to inform the budget that we will be preparing and presenting to you in a couple of months. So what I'm going to be doing is referring to some slides. I'm not going to read the slides verbatim, so I would suggest as we go through, I'll just point some things out that are up there. Something to know, the state school fund, as you've probably heard, is the primary revenue source for schools in Oregon. It's funded on a 2-year cycle, which is known as a biennium. In the upcoming school year, 24-25, which is the budget that we're focused on here, the state will be entering the second year of the biennium, meaning that the state's allocation for K-12 schools is known. Every other year we go into an unknown setting when we set the budget. This year we will know. As part of the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER, as you've probably maybe heard before, which was a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, Centennial is fortunate to have remaining funds this year to devote to unfinished learning and facilities improvement needs for the 23-24 school year. So we have those funds remaining. And if there's any concepts, acronyms, or whatnot, feel free to stop me and have me explain further. Those funds will expire in September of this year. So we have this year to spend them, and then they, as Paul would say, turn into a pumpkin. As you can see on this slide, this current school year is the last year to spend the funds. And as you've heard Director Southerton and me say several times over the past few years, expenses to maintain our current service levels outpace our revenue. And I'll say this in another way, in plainer terms, and this pertains to our state school fund budget specifically. The state of Oregon is not providing sufficient funds to do the same things next year that we're doing as a school district this year. And this is showing up and will show up in the state in similar ways. You've probably heard about Salem-Keizer implementing mid-year budget cuts this year. You saw during the PPS licensed teacher strike where a primary narrative was around the amount of funding the state, or lack thereof, is providing. And pay attention this spring, because you are going to be hearing more and more districts talk about cuts they are going to be making or plan to be making. In later slides, because you'll wonder how that pertains to Centennial, Director Southerton and I will break down how we're factoring in our state school fund allocation into our thinking around the budget for next year. Next slide. I'll take an opportunity to soapbox a little bit on what Director Southerton and I believe would be beneficial. East County school districts, including Centennial, would benefit from improvement to how the state school fund better accounts for the needs of all students as they present. For example, there are currently only weights, so that would be portions or additional funding for students who are English language learners. Poverty is measured by census tracking, students experiencing disabilities, and limited other factors. Some of these weights are only updated periodically, such as poverty, or have caps, such as the percentage of students experiencing a disability. That's a big part of our budget, which fails to fully address the needs of our students. Additionally, there are no weights for students who are historically marginalized, if there's a diversity of community, underserved communities, and other factors. Eliminating the cap on funding for students experiencing a disability, annual updates to the poverty measures, and improving the formula to better reflect the needs of students today would greatly improve our ability to serve students. And it's important to keep in mind that absent additional funding, changes to that formula will only redistribute insufficient resources. It won't guarantee adequate services statewide. In addition to this, the legislature needs to fund schools at the quality education model, QEM level of funding. You may have heard that term before. The fact that this hasn't happened despite continued record revenues at the state level that exceeds forecasts is disappointing and frustrating. The Student Success Act, which I will speak about in a couple of slides, was a positive step in the right direction, and schools need more. Districts have strongly relied on the ESSER funds that I mentioned, the pandemic relief funds, to support increased student needs in a post-pandemic world. As I said, those funds are ending. Our enrollments, and this isn't Centennial specific, but it pertains to Centennial specifically, have declined. So our enrollments are declining, even though they're bumping back up, and we continue to see an increased needs among students. But even prior to the pandemic, the underfunding of students that qualify for special education services has been a challenge. The federal government has never fully funded the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. In Oregon, the additional funding for students who have who experience a disability is capped at 11%, despite most districts in the state now having between 13 and 15% special education rates. It's also important to note the reason for that cap is to incentivize not over-identification, which is a valid policy, but it also means that the services needed and provided outstrips the funding. If we truly want to serve all students equitably, then we need adequate funding to meet the federal IDEA requirements for all qualified students. It's also worth mentioning, drawing your attention to the right side of the slide that's posted now, that in the wake of the PPS strike, the governor has committed to reviewing the way that the state calculates the amount needed to fund schools from one biennium to the next. The calculation methodology has been one of our biggest sticking points in recent years, as it has not assumed cost of living increases that are reflective of reality, and I'll point to how that looks in subsequent slides. This will be a critical conversation for K-12, and if there are opportunities for Centennial to weigh in, we'll make sure to make those known. Next slide. So having discussed a little bit of the broader landscape and school funding in Oregon, let's narrow in on how things look for Centennial. As you can see on the left side of the slide, the currently adopted state school fund is $10.2 billion. And that $10.2 billion isn't just for Centennial. Obviously, it's allocated across school districts in the state. Those funds are provided in a stair-step fashion, with 49% of funds allocated in the first year of the biennium, so this year, 49%, and 51% in the second year to account for increased costs year over year. Now you see the final bullet on the left side. This represents a year-over-year increase in funding of 4%. And you might say 49 to 51 is 2%. It's not 4%. Ask Paul, it's 4%. As you can see on the right side of the slide, Centennial expenses continue to exceed the revenues. I mentioned that before. As you likely know, through a blend of thoughtful decision-making and challenging circumstances, over the past few years, the district has developed a more robust ending fund balance, allowing the district to better withstand the impacts of future funding shortfalls and fluctuations while maintaining strong academic programming and support for students. As noted on the bottom right bullet, which you see with the red portions there, over the past 2 years, Centennial has incorporated a planned fund balance spend down into its budget formula. And as you can see, the delta between the current level of service and the cost to provide those services is developing a wider and wider gap. You can see last year the planned spend down was $1 million, this year it's $2.5 million, and $3.6 million in the coming year is what's projected for our current levels of service to draw down from our fund balance. If it's not in this coming year, and I want to make sure that this point is, if you don't, I've said a lot of information. If we don't deal with that this coming year, it's something that we're going to have to reconcile sometime in the near future, because that amount will snowball year over year. Next slide. Centennial, along with other districts in the state, does receive supplemental funding beyond the state school fund sources. Though there are a handful, I will speak to the most significant one, which is the Student Success Act, which is fully funded for the 24-25 school year and will provide approximately $5.8 million to the district. Since the Student Investment Act began, and you can see on the left side of the slide, the Student Investment Act is a portion of the Student Success Act that schools received. Since SIA began in 2019, it has supported funding for the following additional supports that you see on the slide. I know some people don't like things read to them. I do, so I will read them to you. Centennial Virtual Academy and its associated staffing costs, 3 added social workers, 1 counselor at the middle school level, 1 multi-tiered system of support TOSA, a teacher on special assignment, an English language teacher for students whose primary language is one other than English, 4 middle school teachers, 4 assistant principals, reinstatement of middle school athletics, additional family communication support, strategic planning process that you might have known that we went through this last year and we're implementing this year, and the expansion of out-of-district placements for students with higher levels of needs. Again, my portion of this presentation was to describe the overall landscape of school funding in the state and how it pertains to Centennial, and I will have more to share when the draft budget is presented in the spring. For now, however, I will turn it over to Director Southerton, who will lead us through our budget committee roles and responsibilities, and I imagine Chair Harden will want to stop for
Yes.
a breath and questions.
Do you mind if we pause and for some quick round of questions, see if anybody has any? Looking around, feel free to raise your hand if anyone has any questions.
And can we see the folks on Zoom?
I
Let's
can see them. I don't
Okay.
see any hands raised. All right. Off to you, Paul.
Wonderful. Thank you, Superintendent Owens, and thank you, Chair Harden. So, as Superintendent Owens said, I'll be jumping into roles, responsibilities, and kind of an overview of how we go about presenting and creating and then presenting and ultimately, hopefully, approving the budget. So, as prescribed by Oregon budget law, budget members, this is in Oregon, or budget committees in Oregon are a participatory kind of budgeting committee. That means we want you to participate. We need to hear from you. We need your questions, we need your thoughts, we need your ideas. So you are our community, you are our board, you are the folks that we serve, you have children in the schools, some of you have children in the schools, and so this is very much intended to be a participatory process. So please feel comfortable asking questions and reaching out. So it's important to note there are equal parts of community members and board members that make up the composition of the budget committee. The administration is not part of the budget committee. We are here for your benefit to provide information and then to return with a proposed budget informed by what you've given us for priorities. Members attend the committee work sessions such as tonight and meetings or meetings. There's an option to have 1, 2, or 3, or as many as it takes to get a budget approved. Members provide direction to the administration on budget priorities. You will ultimately receive the proposed budget, so we will return to you in April, hopefully listening and taking in all your feedback and priorities and suggestions tonight, and then returning to you with a completed budget, which includes those. You'll have the opportunity to discuss that amongst yourself at the budget meeting, and we'll also hear from our community through public comment. Ultimately, the members approve the budget if it reflects the priorities established at this work session and then sends it to the school board for final adoption. There are a couple duties that are outside of the budget committee. So budget committee does not set salaries or benefit levels. Those are set by our collective bargaining agreements and other employment agreements already and approved by the board. The budget committee does not place staff. You don't decide, I'm going to go work at Meadows or whatever it might be, it's not that specific in nature. You don't add or delete programs, so the budget committee doesn't add or delete programs, and they don't develop policies. These responsibilities largely fall to the board of directors, the elected board of directors, or through the board of directors, the administration will act at their direction. It's also important to know that overall, what is the budget philosophy? What are we going to, why do we have a plan funding, spend down, ending fund balance, spend down plan? What are kind of the core tenets of Centennial's budget philosophy? And so I think it's good to kind of set the table, and I think it's served the district very well. We take a long-term financial planning approach. We take a philosophy that, it emphasizes stability of programs and staffing because we understand how disruptive it is to have wild swings in staffing, either up or down. And so we want to have smooth kind of waves of increases and decreases. We don't want to have the radical change that is disruptive and harmful to our students. We maintain adequate financial control, so we manage purchasing and expenses exceptionally closely, and we have monthly reports to the board on our finances. And we also manage our appropriate level of reserves in our funds to absorb economic shocks and downturns. We do react appropriately. We don't delay reaction. We want to adjust to the conditions, but appropriately is the key word there. Again, limiting those large swings that can come in some districts or in some budgets. We want to limit those swings and make sure that we have stability. And we also have a tenet of prudent use of accumulated reserves when needed to provide the stability. And you'll see if you look through some of the results I've shared previously, if you've looked at some of our financial reports, there's years when fund balances increase and there's years when fund balances are used. And so that's kind of that ebb and flow. So sometimes we're able to do everything and not have to dip into savings, if you will. And sometimes we're not able to keep the current service level without dipping into savings. And that's what I kind of mean when I say, adequate use of reserves. It's thinking of it as savings accounts. Under Oregon budget law, all meetings are open and subject to public meeting law. A quorum of the budget committee is required to conduct business. So thank you for showing up this evening, both online and in person. We need you for many things, and one of those things is to have a meeting. The chair and the vice chair are selected at the first meeting every year. Chair Harden is the current budget committee chair, and I anticipate we can perhaps interest him in continuing to be the chair, but that will be up to you all in the next meeting. The committee may request and will receive additional information throughout the process. An important note is the budget becomes public record as soon as it's released to the committee. So it has been our practice that we have our budget committee meeting in April each year. And the budget is a dense document. You know, there are up to 200 pages in an annual budget with all the various funds. So I will typically send you an electronic copy of that in advance of the meeting, so you have an opportunity to review it. I'll also walk through the changes from year to year at our meeting and discuss, you know, what's materially increased, what's materially decreased, highlights of the changes in the budget. But you'll want to have the full budget available to you so that you're informed and you have that. When we do that, we also have a copy of it printed here in the district office to hand out if somebody wants to pick one up. And we also put it on our website because it is a public document at that point in time. The committee must take public comment at the meeting where the budget is approved. So if it's approved at the first meeting, then we want to make sure we're taking comment at that first meeting. If it's not approved at the first meeting, then we would have a second meeting and we would take public comment at that meeting and so on. The committee approves the budget as well as the tax levy. So you're approving not only the spending, but you're approving the collection of local property tax revenue and any levies that have been approved by voters, such as our 2020 capital bond levy. And you may ask, what does that look like, or how do we do that? This is a copy of the motion from last year. We approved it at the second budget committee meeting, and a committee member made a motion to approve the amount of the budget. You can see it's $162,416,303 for the total budget, general fund and all special revenue funds for this year. And then the tax rate. We have a permanent tax rate in our district of $4.07.448 per thousand of assessed value. The tax levy for the bonded debt, again, the 2020 capital bond payment, that is the amount of interest in principal that's scheduled to be paid for the year of the budget. And so that's how we know that number. And it does note that we do consider that on average, 4% of taxes are not collected each year. They're delayed, they're deferred, there's compression because of Measure 5. And so these amounts consider that as well when they're being levied. So there are many additional resources for Oregon budget law and budget committee members. 4 here are ones that I access regularly and I recommend. The Oregon School Boards Association has a great video on budget committee members and how the budget committee process works. There's another resource from the state itself on local budgeting in Oregon from the Department of Revenue. There's a manual, which again is a couple, maybe 200 pages, so yeah, at your leisure. And then PBAM is the Program Budgeting and Accounting Manual for the Oregon Department of Education. This translates all the codes into actions. So you'll see codes in the budget, or maybe you've looked at the current year budget previously for those members that have been on the committee before, or if you joined us, maybe you looked at our website and downloaded the budget, and you'll see, you know, function 1121, and you know that means a lot to business office folks. It may not mean a lot to you yet if you're not familiar with it, and you would say, oh, that's the middle school function level, so it has all the teachers and everybody that we're having in instruction, and it's specific to instruction for 1121. It's just the classroom, and then you have support departments which started in the 2000s, and those will be custodial and principals and business managers, and you can kind of see where everything is in the budget. So it's a helpful document if you want to help, if it's not as explanatory in the budget book, it's another resource. And I'll be following up as my typical practice tomorrow with an email to the full budget committee, including the board and the budget committee members, with copies of this slide and with the links that you can click on and work. And I did test them this morning. They're all working. It's one of my pet peeves when I get a presentation and the link doesn't work. So they were all working as of this morning. So a lot of information there about the process, about your role as a committee member, about my role in providing information and support and, coming back to you with a proposed budget that reflects the instructions that you give us. I want to allow an opportunity for any questions folks may have.
Anybody? I see Rod Betcher.
Yes.
You have a question?
Question I should have asked last go around. I was surprised to get the question so early, but I wanted to find out whether or not we returned to any of the information in the first, Dr. James's.
Use your microphone, please, for the nice people online.
Sorry.
Yep. There we go.
Oh, good. Thank you. To return to this information that was presented to begin with, and to go back to, or do we need to ask our questions as we go along to all of the information that was given out, like what Paul has just given out and what James has just given out?
If you have a question for me from the previous portion, feel free.
Okay.
If you have a question, feel free to ask it.
Okay. The 9 through 12 estimates for, not the estimates actually, the counts for 2022 and 2023 in the high school, does that include the virtual academic?
It does,
It
yes
does.
indeed. Yeah, it includes all programs in those grade levels, so virtual or at the traditional high school.
Okay. And in the Student Success Act section, all of the hiring of the 14 folk positions that were there, how are we monitoring the efficacy of those folks being added in those positions at those places? And would they tend to roll over to the next year and the next year?
Great question. Do you want?
Yeah, so that, as you may remember, when we went through the strategic planning process last year, there was a parallel process that process also satisfied, which was the Aligning for Student Success, which incorporated the student investment account, Measure 98, and then a handful of other budget sources. And so when we went through that process last year, we went through an intentional process also of looking at those budget sources and seeing if they aligned with the new strategies that were identified. We'll be going back through and we will do this on an annual basis to say, are these strategies that we want to continue, or are there other strategies that we want to incorporate, knowing that the pie is a finite amount. If we add a new strategy, we're going to have to consider taking something else off the table. So short answer to your question is we review those annually, and it depends on which position we talk about the efficacy of, but generally speaking, that is the work that needs to be done, perceptions of those involved in the work, whether it be the staff, teachers, support staff, or administrators who are involved with working with those individuals or positions as well.
So for these special funds, do you have a special rubric for these 14 folks that you will call it successful if in the year they've reached some level of help?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that there's a rubric per se, and it's always a work in progress to assess efficacy, because a lot of what happens in education is somewhat intangible. And yes, we measure efficacy on an ongoing basis and evaluate strategies. I don't know if Director Southerton has any that he wants to add.
No, I think that's great. I'll take that back. I do have something to add. So a lot of these programs and initiatives in the student investment account were informed by the pre-planning and the engagement we did with our community when the Student Success Act was passed. And so we engaged with our community, we engaged with our partners, we engaged with our staff, and developed a full list of additional needs that would help meet the program, the targeted needs or targeted purpose for the student investment account. So that was well informed by the community, and we've been working that plan and seeing a lot of the outcomes that we anticipated seeing. So it is anticipated the ones that are in the budget, in particular the staff, those are ongoing needs, because we know that the point of the student investment account is to serve our traditionally marginalized, traditionally underserved, our students that need additional supports, and that's specifically what it's for. And so those positions that you've seen there are dedicated to supporting those students, whether it's social workers, counselors, assistant principals that help schools with large populations so students can get the support that they need. Those are all targeted supports for the the community of students that that those funds are intended to serve.
And the last question I would have is, are the expenses on the general fund update, it says on pace
Mhm.
with budgeted amount. Does that take into consideration the new work that's been done through the bonds that we just passed, and you have now reached the end of most of the bond work?
It does, and I'll be happy to speak to that because I have a financial update that covers that slide as well.
Perfect, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
great. All right. Chair.
Any other questions in the room, online? Any of your friends online? All right.
To your question, Rod, I just want to make sure to kind of hit it on the head completely. Despite the engagement that Paul's talking about, we're not initiating strategies and then continuing those into perpetuity without reevaluation. And so that's something that we look at on an ongoing basis, not just, okay, we're doing it because we've always done it.
And I appreciate that about Centennial.
Yeah.
They're always looking after each program all the time. It's a daunting piece of work.
Thanks for the clarification. All right. Looks like we can hand it back to you, Paul.
Thank you. So with that, I'll be jumping into year-to-date results for the current budget year. So again, for those budget committee members that served last year, we approved a budget, or you all approved a budget in May of last year, and the board adopted it in June. And so now it's an opportunity for us to reflect, a half year later and kind of see, are things shaping up the way we thought they would, or, how are we doing? And then what are the projections? What are we forecasting for the next budget? So as a primer, and Superintendent Owens discussed this as well, is that 95% of our revenue is based directly on enrollment. So when we'll be talking about how we're doing this year, we'll be talking about enrollment and forecast for next year for enrollment, which directly impacts the funding that we'll receive. So it easily has the largest impact, both positive if you have growing enrollment, and unfortunately negative if you have declining enrollment on the annual budget. Important to note, as Superintendent Owens said, it's not only the number of students, but also how those students present and what needs they may have. So English language learners, students experiencing disability, foster students, students experiencing poverty. Those are all additional weights that districts receive, or additional portions of funding for that population. And as Superintendent Owens said, there's opportunities to improve that formula and make it more accurate and maybe update it for the student of today. It is there and something that we do consider in our forecast. So enrollment through K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12, and 18 through 21, and ALS placements are how we lump them on the monthly student report that you'll be able to see in board book and be able to see on the board website. These are numbers. When we look at data, it's often helpful to measure a similar point in time. So you'll notice on the slide I have October 22 data versus October 23 data, and then the delta, or the change between the two measurements, and it's broken down by those levels. Important to note, 18 to 21-year-old students who are experiencing disability attend our Centennial Transition Center, and outplacements are not those necessarily the same students. As Director Wright shared last time, there is some overlap, but we group them together in counting them. We don't group, they're not necessarily the same programs. It's just a measurement that we've traditionally used, and probably one that could be changed in the future. But again, when we're looking at measuring, we want to take consistent points in time to measure so we can see differences. I color-coded them in positive and neutral or negative. So 24 more students at the elementary level, that's fantastic news. You may recall that during the pandemic, we saw the largest declines in the K1 and 2 levels. So seeing students come back at the elementary is a very healthy and good sign for our district. You can see at the middle level, it's largely flat last year to this year. So even with the incoming kinders and the graduating seniors, that middle school kind of rolling up kind of stayed flat. 9 through 12, you see a drop of 65 students. We researched that and looked into that, and that was largely attributable to a smaller 9th grade class coming in this year than came in last year. So last year was a slightly larger 9th grade class, and so you're seeing a smaller 9th grade class coming in this year, and that primarily counts for the number. I say primarily because it's not the only contributor. We are a high mobility district. We have a lot of families moving in and a lot of families moving out. We have early graduation. We have a lot of different impacts that happen at the high school level. And I know Principal Miller has spoken at that at previous board meetings, and Director Andrews has asked about high school in particular, and we'll continue to follow up on that. You'll see that outplacements is -7, and that's a positive because we want to be able to develop the competencies to serve our students in our schools. And outplacements are locations or other opportunities for students to receive services that we're not able to provide in district. And so it is our preference to be able to meet those students' needs, whatever they are, in our district. They're a part of our community, and we'd like them to be part of our schools. So, and that's not always possible. So it's not, it's just part of complex student needs. But at any rate, I call that out as a positive, because the more students we're serving in district is better. Overall, you see that as of October, we had 44 fewer students this October than we had previous October. And it's important to note we take measurements in time, right? Because ODE, or the Oregon Department of Education, provides our funding. It's not fixed in October or in September. They don't say, okay, you had this many students, that's how much money we're going to give you for the whole year. We have to report periodically throughout the year, and they will increase and decrease our funding depending on what happens with our ADM, with our student count. And so we do track it month to month, and it's reflected in our budget accordingly. Great to know, in this next slide, you'll see that 5645 was our total student enrollment in January. So that's 51 students higher than it was in October. Which is, again, very positive news for the district. It does not typically increase between October and January. It usually starts out at a high at the beginning of the year and kind of steadily declines because of early graduation or other reasons, and is lower at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year. As you'll see on the right side of the slide there, it's actually, on average, about 120 to 160 students lower at the end of the year than it is at the beginning of the year. So the fact that it's 51 students higher in January is very positive news. And again, these are all data points, and it's anecdotal. We're trying to create the whole picture, and we're measuring this and looking at that and trying to get a full understanding. So that's in the spirit that we offer the information. Our revenue is expected to come in between 74.7 and 75.1 million. We don't know exactly how many people will pay their taxes and the exact amount of revenue that will come in this year and how many won't. So this is an estimate. It's a little on the lower side. We budgeted 75.1, and as I presented to the board in December with the update, part of that reason is that we received additional property tax dollars. Property taxes were higher, not the rate, but the collection was higher last year than we anticipated. And when that happens, the state goes, okay, you received more than we thought you would, so we gave you more than you needed, and they'll take back those dollars. So in essence, they kind of front load us, if you will. It's the same amount of dollars that we anticipated. We just got a little bit more last year than we anticipated, and we'll get a little bit less, but it will balance out. Expenses are right on track. We track these monthly. They're on the board website and shared with the board and the community. And so we are seeing our expense rate being running at the prescribed or the forecasted rate, which is good news because every program that we have in the budget is important. Every position we have in the budget is important. Those expenses are needed for our students, and so we do want to spend what we budget to spend, right? Deficit spending is also on track. As Superintendent Owen said, we have a planned spending plan, ending fund balance plan spend down, and we're forecasting to spend about $2.5 million more than we receive in support this year, and that's planned for, and it's okay with our reserves. So, with that being said, how's 24 and 25 looking, knowing that we are now just a few, well, we'll call it, 8 months away, 9 months away from September. It will be here before you know it. Sorry for those folks that are wanting it to take longer, but and so it's important to kind of know, and as I said, with our key drivers here, are our expenses and our state support. And so it's great to know that overall, while we have some growth in some areas of the district, and we have some declines in other areas of the district, overall our student enrollment is stable, which is fantastic news for those of you that have been on the budget committee and on the board for years. You've heard of declining enrollment. We had declining enrollment pre-pandemic, and it accelerated during the pandemic, and we're stabilized now, and potentially could grow. So we'll see how that ends up. State support is settled at a 4% increase for next year. So we know what our funding is going to look like. We're going to have a roll-up of 4%, which is good in the essence that it's known. We can plan. You'll recall last year we had to guess, and then we came back well, we didn't guess, we had to forecast, but we had to came back and the state legislature ended up with a little bit more money than we thought, which was great, but then we had to update it at the final meeting as well. So all that uncertainty is kind of gone, which is great. And we know that our expenses are going to increase more than that state support is going to increase. So while it's great that we know, it is still a challenge. And then as Superintendent Owen said, the pandemic funds ending is a big loss because we all know that students have ongoing needs and those needs are not ending. Those needs are continuing. So overall, those are just kind of the inputs that we'll take into consideration, you know, when we're building what is the total amount of support that's available. And then we'll balance those against the priorities that you all inform us to consider. You know, I'll call your attention probably to the last bullet point on this slide because we've discussed most of the previous information on there. But without adequate support from the state level and without new pandemic funding continuing on, it's going to be difficult to have funding for new services. So this is anticipated to largely be what's called a roll forward budget. Continue the service levels that we're providing for students now, not major cuts or reductions, but also limited funds to do new work. With that, I welcome any questions you may have on the results for the current year and our forecast for next year. Yes.
All right, question time. Mary, go ahead. If you could use the microphone so the nice people can hear you online.
With the state surplus in funding overall, why don't they apply that money more to schools? You know, instead of putting so much towards the kickers, why don't they apply that to schools to bring us on a more even keel with other states that have more successful educational programs?
Yeah, and it's a good question, and I'll let Paul clean this one up, which he'll need to do quite a bit of cleanup on. But my perception is that the budgeting has been done conservatively for the last couple of bienniums at least, and then that's resulting in a kicker when, oh, the economy was better than we thought, and then the kicker kicks. I think that there's been a perception that there's an economic downturn at some point that's going to happen because we haven't had a recession in, you know, a dozen plus years. And there's some state law around kicker, and there's some talks about kicker reform. I'll let Director Southerton speak more specifically to the nuance.
Yeah, it is an excellent question, and we had some success this year with collective advocacy amongst our union partners and amongst school administrators, school boards, and other groups. And we did see an increased funding that was higher than historical, which we're grateful for, and it's not adequate by, you know, Oregon's own measure of the quality education model. They understand that, you know, if we were to fulfill that model, that would be more than $1 billion over the funding level that they set for the biennium, which is a large amount. So it really comes down to, you know, the legislature is acting in our direction as community members, as voters, and it comes down to that advocacy, and we need to let our legislature know that that's a priority, right? You're going to give me priorities tonight, right? And we need to give our elected officials, you know, our priorities as their constituency as well, and continue that advocacy. So I'm looking forward. We had some success this year with the $10.2 billion. It was a big increase, but it was on a lower base, as Superintendent Owens said. We only had a fraction of that increase the last biennium, and it went from 9.1 to 9.3 billion, which, you know, is 2% across 2 years, so 1% a year. Kind of, yeah, it was, unfortunately, and at that time we had the pandemic funds, and that's now created the funding cliffs that some districts are experiencing because they use those pandemic funds to backfill what should have happened, you know, at the state level. So it's an excellent question, and it really comes down to all of us for that advocacy, you know, to provide the funding that we need to provide students what they need.
Are you able to speak specifically around the kicker and why it's not able to be rediverted back to schools?
Yeah, it would take an action by our elected officials to change the law. And I'll have to, I don't want to speak out of pocket, but my belief is it's in the Oregon Constitution, so it would take 2/3 majority to change that out. Yeah. So I think there's support for it. I don't know if there's 2/3 support statewide.
All right. Director Andrews?
I'd like to make a comment, Mary. It's great that you're on the budget committee, because what you'll find out in being connected to the school district is that you'll be notified when there are opportunities for you to have the biggest impact when the legislature's in session, and when the times are to reach out to specific legislators and encourage them to support the schools. And so it's really sort of an additional opportunity as a member of the budget committee, that you get that detailed knowledge, and it can be really helpful.
You know, it seems like I think almost everybody in the legislature says they support education, but then the money isn't put towards the education.
Well said. Rod Betcher?
Just to return to my comment about the effect of the bond funds and the building that happened there. At this point, I think we're going to have a much better guess when we're forecasting to how it's going to affect the whole budget. And in kind of microscopically, there were 4 new gymnasiums put up, not 10, that we didn't have all schools. So that won't affect those schools as much as it will the others. And so we'll get a chance to see how the custodial needs and anything else. But we would expect that we'd be able to minimize some of the costs, which we haven't been able to put toward repair and replacement of things that have been breaking down year after year after year, and roofs that have been leaking.
Yeah, excellent point. So, through the support of our community passing the 2020 capital obligation bonds, you'll notice in the budget book that we'll have in the proposed budget, you won't notice an overall reduction, but you will notice a change. So you'll have fewer repairs that are needed in the budget. Conversely, you'll have more custodians that are needed to clean the 30,000 square feet and maintain it. We'll be saving energy because we installed a lot of LED and energy efficient mechanical systems. And new systems need to be maintained so they don't fall into disrepair as they did in previous years. So I think overall it's going to be an amazing and fantastic benefit to our students, and it's going to be, it's not going to negatively impact the budget, maybe just change how we're spending it a little bit. So great observation, thank you.
I think that will inform the next bond committee as to how the success of that and what we need to do when we change gears for that. So I'd appreciate to follow that up.
Yep, well said.
All right.
All right, so now it's time for the main event, and so this is for me to stop talking and start listening. Hopefully I was doing that throughout, but more so now. And it's what do you, the Budget Committee of Centennial School District, want us to come back to you with in a proposed budget? How do you want to prioritize spending? What is important that we should focus on? What is, are there things that we should discontinue? Are there things that we should start? And part of that I'll do is just give you a quick rundown of the existing priorities that inform the current budget that we're working on. So those priorities, we're building a strong foundation of, and these are our strategic plan priorities as well, because it informed our budgeting last year. So building a strong foundation, pre-K through 3rd grade. So increasing access to preschool and early learning, growth and attainment of grade level standards in ELA and math, supporting every student's well-being and inclusion with perceptions and of student perception and enhancing safety, inclusion, and belonging, reducing the disproportionately of referrals and suspension, exclusion, and reductions of alternative placements, increased school attendance, equitable access to supports, centering student voice, ensuring equitable access to high-quality academics, and preparing every student for their future. And you can see underneath the bullet points, so you have the strategies, and then you have, the tactics on how we'll get there. Additionally, this body from last year gave us additional priorities to consider, and that was supporting community use of facilities for after hours and weekends. And we added custodial hours to do that and support that. And now that we've had the gyms turned over to us, I'm pleased to say that we have seen increased activity and opportunities for our community to to use those gyms, and we are working on additional software and enhancements so people can rent or reserve our facilities online through our website. We hope to kick that off in about 6 months, but again, allowing more access to our facilities and welcoming our community in. Further enhancing co-curricular activities, so Superintendent Owens discussed this when we talked about the student investment account and how we brought back basketball, volleyball, and wrestling at the middle school level in addition to track, so 4 times the athletic competition or athletic activities that students at the middle level can experience from just a few short years ago, so that's fantastic. And we also added more support, advisory support, student teachers for clubs and ASB or student body clubs as well, and student government. Enhanced career technical education programs, so Measure 98 and High School Success supports this to the tune of nearly $2 million a year, so that's additional and enhanced elective opportunities for our students, and that's through our partnership with CAL, the Center for Advanced Learning, which is with Gresham and Reynolds and ourselves, and then also our electives here that we have at the high school and at the middle school that we offer. Expanded transportation opportunities came up because we had an issue with students or schools being able to afford field trips. So we still have the barrier of having enough drivers, but the priority was to help support and fund so that schools could engage in more field trips and not have to worry as much about fundraising. So that's a lot of information. And now it's time for us to hear back from you. Do these sound like the right priorities? Does this committee, this body, support them? And what else, you'll kind of see the numbers on the side, should we, the administration, include in the proposed budget that we'll bring back to you for your consideration in April?
Okay.
Back to that page.
Absolutely.
So we can see what the priorities are as we talk about it, or are you planning to take notes?
I have pen and paper to take notes, and Regina, our wonderful assistant, is also taking notes. So we've got the notes covered. We can toggle back and forth between.
So we are a bit backed up
Okay.
on time. So would it be possible for us to digest this information, observe the slide, and think of items and priorities over the next week, and then share them with you? Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, I think that's great. We did that
And meet the
last year, I think,
timeline?
as well.
Because there's been a lot of information, and just, I'd be afraid just that we're grasping at straws out of the air.
Sure.
You know, being put on the spot, especially backed up in time. If that would be all right, Claudia?
So is there some way to do that collaboratively? Because that's what I miss if we're not doing it in the group, because somebody may raise something and it sparks an idea for me, you know? So if we each go off and independently think about things, is there a way, can we set up a message board or some kind of a collaborative process?
Yeah, one thing we've had success with in the past is sending an email to the budget committee at budget@CSD 28J,
Yep.
and then the reply will come to all of us. They will reply all, just like we do with the actual numbers and the budget, we will review it.
Okay,
So that way we can see what the questions that are being asked as well as the answers.
Okay,
Would
That
that
would be
be sufficient?
Great.
Because I want to make sure everyone is heard, but I don't want us to have to feel rushed through it all. Melissa?
Sometimes email responses get bogged down and missed. Is this an opportunity to have a shared Google Doc? Is that something that scares people? But the shared Google Doc is a living document, and you can see answers and responses if anybody has a Gmail account, and we should all be able to connect that with our email. It's just an additional idea. It can be a little bit neater than the emails pinging around everywhere. So, because the document refreshes repeatedly, so you don't have to pull up all the emails. So, just a suggestion.
That's very valuable feedback. Thank you. And we can talk about that, Paul, as
Yeah.
well as with the group. Okay.
give us some instruction.
Some instruction, I'll give you some guidance, and we will, in the meantime, we will go, as things bubble up, let's go via email. And we will send an email out from the budget committee tomorrow, just asking for you to follow up. And then, Paul, what kind of timeline
Yeah,
for
great.
these priorities?
Great question. So as you can imagine, creating this budget does take a lot of time. So if we can have feedback probably by next Friday, which is about 10 days, that would be helpful to inform, because your priorities then need to be translated into actions, right? So, does that seem reasonable for everybody?
Friday the 19th?
Yep.
Friday the 19th, okay, and we will set up some form of communication. I just made a Google Sheet, my first one the last week, so. I might be able to, yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, and as my practice, I'll follow up tomorrow with an email which has a slide deck in it, has kind of next steps and, you know, maybe a little prompts, and then I can have a Google Doc created already, and I can please include it in the link, and all you have to do is click on it.
Yes, because I am concerned about our time this evening for this meeting,
For sure.
and appreciate being rushed. And, you know, I want us all to marinate it and come up with honest, thoughtful questions and priorities for the district.
Excellent. And if there are those of you who prefer to reply via email, I'll be happy to put those suggestions in the Google Doc for you. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you.
All right. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting at this time at 6:58.
Recording in progress.
This meeting of the school board has been called to order. First up, first up, I'd like to welcome everybody in the room. Very exciting to see all of you here, and I'm really excited to hear more about what you've got to present to us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your day and your evening to be here. It means a lot, and we see you all, so thank you. Next up, we're going to take a approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments needed to the agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, David. And Pam, the ayes have it. The agenda has been approved. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Superintendent Owens for our first item on our introduction of guests.
All right, our item is Annual School Board Appreciation Month. So January is our time to recognize our school board members. We have 7 school board members. We see a handful of them here, and we also have school board members who are joining us virtually this evening. These are unpaid volunteer individuals who are highly committed to our school district, and we really appreciate their service. I'm going to turn it over to Missy for a moment, who's going to give us a rundown as far as some of the things that were provided for school board members in recognition, and then I have something beyond that to share as well.
Well, thank you all for the work that you guys do every day. It's a pleasure working with each and every one of you. You have a hodgepodge of gifts next to you. OSEA was nice enough to bring some wonderful macaroons and some cupcakes that are over sitting by Marisol, so help yourself. Dining Services provided a beautiful whisk with a little statement and some goodies. Centennial Middle School provided some awesome swag, so that's incredibly lovely. And Director Wright from Student Services provided some posters and some bookmarks, and of course a little flower with some love. So thanks again for all you do, and I know Meadows might have a little something after their presentation. Maybe, hopefully. So thank you for all that you do, and we just really appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
And normally our school board members get paid in cookies. Tonight it'll be pies at a break, if you didn't already mention that. And nothing can quite recognize a school board member like a proclamation. So I will go ahead and read one now. This is why you ran. This is why you're here tonight. Whereas school boards create a vision for what students should know and be able to do, whereas school boards establish clear standards for student performance, whereas school boards ensure that student assessments are tied to established standards, whereas school boards are accountable to the community for operating schools that support student achievement, whereas school boards align school district resources to ensure that students meet standards, whereas school boards create a climate that supports the philosophy that all children can learn at high levels, whereas school boards build collaborative relationships based on trust, teamwork, and shared accountability, and whereas school boards are committed to continuous education and training on issues related to student achievement. Now, therefore, we, the students, staff, teachers, and administration, hereby declare our appreciation to the members of the Centennial School District Governing Board and proclaim the month of January to be School Board Recognition Month. We urge all citizens to join us in recognizing the dedication and hard work of our local school board members in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world. Let's go ahead and give our board members a nice round of applause.
Can I keep it in a frame? Put it on the wall?
I mean, I'll take a proclamation over a paycheck any day.
I don't need pie, but proclamation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of the different folks who have given us little tokens of appreciation. It really means a lot. This is hard work. It's a lot of hours that we put in on top of our day jobs and families and everything else that we have going on. So just to feel that love is appreciated. Thank you. Next up on our agenda, we're going to do some fall athlete recognition. And just a few seconds before we get started, I think we've got a video or something to share. But our fall athletes at Centennial High School have worked really hard to not just maintain their school performance, but also to develop themselves as athletes. And so I know we've had a lot of very hardworking youth who have been able to, get some state recognition and local recognition. And so I'd love to just be able to for everybody to get to see that opportunity as well.
Great. Thank you, Chair Solaski. As was mentioned, I have a video, which hopefully I'm able to queue up without too much of a fuss here. And as you had mentioned, recognition to the student athletes and also to their families who support them. As you said, for board members, also parents of athletes and students who are involved in co-curricular activities have a big commitment themselves in terms of preparing their athletes for action. So this is also for them. I see that there's at least a couple in the gallery, and then this will be posted online for being able to see asynchronously as well. So I'm assuming that the audio from the room will work, but if I need to turn up my volume, I will have you guys let me know. Okay. And kudos to Chief Communications Officer Albert Rosales Correa, as well as Carrie Ann Walton and Dante Gouge in the athletics office for collaborating on putting that recognition together. So thank you.
Excellent. Next up, we've got approval of minutes. The minutes have been distributed in board book previously. Are there any corrections or amendments needed to the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from December 13th.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. It's a unanimous vote. Meeting minutes will be filed as presented. I have not seen anything come through for public forum. Is that correct? Okay. Next up, we've got our student representative report with our students from Centennial High School. So at this point, I'd love to welcome Marisol Lakshmi.
Oh, good evening. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I didn't know my old teachers would be here. So, yes. Not old, sorry. My young teachers. what's been going on at Centennial High School? Today, we actually just had the first assembly of the year, and we had some student band performers, some winter sport competitions, and lots of staff involvement. And by saying that, we actually had like a musical chairs, and whoever got out got pied in the face. Speaking of pies. Yeah, and for our winter sports, we actually had one person from each team eat spicy noodles, and it was a race. So yeah. Oh, and swim team won. Yeah.
This week we had a spirit week, so
Hey Eagles, next week's spirit week is coming.
we had a spirit week. These are the days. Today we had Liar Liar Day. I actually have my shirt on right now. It says I can drive. I can't drive. So yeah, this is like a brief explanation of the days by a TikTok made by our student council. So, play.
Hey Eagles, next week's spirit week is coming up pretty soon from January 8th to the 12th. We hope to see your participation.
Starting off on Monday, we got Jersey Day.
And on Tuesday, it's going to be anything but a backpack day.
Wednesday is Liar Liar Day. Wear a white shirt and lie on top.
On Thursday is Country Club versus Country. I'm Country Club right now.
On Friday, it's frat versus sorority.
Go Eagles!
Hey Eagles, next week's spirit week is coming up.
Okay. And then next up, we actually have a slide to show, another one. We're doing this for about 2 weeks. It's a menstrual hygiene drive, and it's not by student council. It's actually by our club, GSA. But it is so those that use hygiene, or like that. This is like pads and like those things. Like at our school, we have dispensaries of pads and tampons, but sometimes it's not discreet enough, and some students may want that like private to them. So GSA it was actually hoping they could set up a room or maybe like a little cabinet somewhere discreet so these students can have privacy. And we've been collecting some hygiene products at the high school, and yeah.
Okay, we started this new segment. It's Eagle News. So it's like updates on like what's happening around our school. We finally dropped our first Eagle News video. This went today. And I don't know if you guys would like to see it. It's like 8 minutes long. Yeah. Let's watch it. It's good.
Good morning,
Sorry, guys.
Eagles, and Happy New Year. My name is Mia Basco, and I'm here with
Keisha Oliver. For those who don't know, we are starting a news program called
Eagle News. Here, we will be discussing all of the amazing programs our school has to offer, such as the sports, choir, drama department, and more.
It is also our job to keep you informed with upcoming events.
Now that we're introduced, I want you to meet December's Athletes of the Month. They will be discussing what motivates them and why they chose to play the sport they play. Who motivates you?
I think watching other players, and then especially for like the game of basketball, I think my teammates, because playing with them helps me as a person. So
I would definitely say my dad. My dad motivates me a lot. He's just always pushing me, and I would definitely say my coach, Coach Demetrius McCorn, and another coach that's been in my life named Freddie Jones. He's always pushed me, and they've always been in my life, so it's a blessing.
What motivates you for wrestling?
Seeing my other teammates win, like for duels, it's really exciting. Like when one of your teammates takes a shot or like pins the other person.
And who motivates you?
I think just winning motivates me to keep wrestling.
I'm be honest, my friends just like they were like, you should do this. I'm like, no, that's stupid. And then they're like, come on. And so they forced me to come to the practice, and I kind of fell in love with the team and the whole sport.
What made me want to start swimming? It's my second year swimming. I just kind of wanted to stay in shape and for other sports, and it looked fun.
Wow, that was inspirational. Thank you to all the teachers and athletes who let us film. Another program that is thriving is our very own choir and band.
Before winter break, there was a choir and band concert that had you in a trance by the well-executed performance. And for those of you who were unable to attend, we have just the treat for you. I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for the next choir and band concert.
The fun doesn't end here. If what we have shown has not caught your attention, we may have the solution for you.
Our school has all the clubs you can imagine, and if they don't, know that with permission, you can make your own club.
Every episode, we will spotlight a club. With that, we'll head over to Harmony and Paris, who will be introducing the Garden Club.
Hey guys, I'm Harmony, and this is
Paris Green, the Garden Club president.
Yes. Okay, now what is Garden Club?
Garden Club is a club where we work on the gardens in the north and the south courtyards. If you haven't noticed a garden there, that's because there isn't really one. It all died once the teacher was in charge of it left. It all died. So now we're restarting it.
Now, who can I talk to join Garden Club?
Christina Dowell. She is the transition specialist of Centennial High School, and she's in the hallway near the gym, right next to the concession stands.
So when do you guys meet?
We meet once a month on a Friday, a random Friday, maybe towards the end of the month more likely. And we meet at least one Saturday out of the month to actually work on the garden. So Fridays are for meetings, Saturdays are for garden work.
All right, now why should I join Gardening Club?
Well, you should join it if you want a green thumb, if you like planting flowers or just being out in nature, messing with the birds. Yeah, that's cool. If you want to build stuff, we're probably going to build birdhouses and other things along the lines that we're going to put into the garden. So if you like nature.
Well, there you have it. If anything that we said intrigued you, sign up today.
Before we sign off, we will update you guys on upcoming events. For those of you who don't know, we have an amazing calendar here across from the cafeteria. Listed on this board will be all the upcoming sports events, so if you would like to go, please look at this board. Since you guys have been such great listeners, we wanted to give you a little treat. Hey Eagles, I'm here with Caden Saychin. Caden, what's your favorite thing about school?
The schoolwork, the learning, the math. Hey, baby.
I'm here with the one and only Julia, who is one of the captains for the girls wrestling team. What is your favorite thing about Centennial?
My favorite thing has to be our diversity. Definitely our diversity. And our adversity to overcome diversity.
What's your name?
My name is Aubriana.
And what is your favorite thing about Centennial?
The girls basketball team.
Go. Hey! I'm here with
Camila.
Okay, and what is your favorite thing about Centennial?
My friends.
Nice, thank you so much. What is your favorite thing about Centennial?
I play basketball.
Very nice.
I would say the teachers, they're pretty calm. Oh yeah, the teachers are cool. There's some cool teachers.
I'm here with the principal, and what is your favorite thing about Centennial?
Of course, the students. We have the best student body ever, and you can see that in the school pride, the amount of all the sports. So just go Eagles.
Yeah, go Eagles.
Thank you for watching. Go Eagles. Good morning, Eagles, and
Okay, so next up we have our spring fling. We usually have like a winter formal, but this time we're changing it to a spring fling, which will happen on Saturday, March 9th at Centennial High School. And yeah.
To shout out one of our classmates actually who got the most valuable teammate for the state of Oregon, and yeah, pretty cool. Oh wait, hold up, I'm sorry. Yeah, we were just like these two like slides and such are like, we got new TVs and they're super cool. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but they're like pretty big TVs and they display things like this. Like, I just feel like it just shows more student appreciation because you saw like Mitchell's face every time you walked outside of the hallway. But yeah, it was pretty cool though.
Not to boost the girls basketball, but I am. So tomorrow we actually have a game at Hillsborough. And yeah, the boys also play there, so it's a double header. Yeah. Thank you.
We also have a cheer competition. It would be Saturday, January 13th at Westland High School, and then the following day they have one at Gladstone High School. So yeah, that is. Oh, one last thing.
Thank you guys so much, and we appreciate you guys so much. So we came bearing a gift.
Yes, we made you guys something as a student council class.
Oh, should we? Okay, we're just gonna pass this one.
Take one. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
These are beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Your reports have just continued to grow and give us all sorts of interesting tidbits about what's going on in the high school. So really appreciate that and appreciate the love. And you guys are doing great work. You can definitely tell the student pride.
Trying to get Director Lynn's attention here. So he can see the, yep.
Yep. Good. And good luck tomorrow for basketball. Yeah. Fantastic. Are there any questions or anything? Nope. Fantastic. Thank you. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Owens to introduce our next.
All right, as I believe Marisol said, I'm one of yours as well, so it's a pleasure to, as a former Meadows student, be able to introduce your school report. And if we are grading these school reports based on staff attendance, I would say you're in the lead, so.
But it's not a competition.
Now. I realize it is a short walk across the parking lot. And, you know, we have a board member who is also a Meadows parent as well. So it is my pleasure to introduce Meadows Principal Lisa Klingen, who will be sharing about Meadows Elementary this evening.
Thank y'all. They know I'm nervous, even though I like to talk a lot. I don't like to do this a lot. So, but I am super, super excited and proud to be representing Meadows today. So, thank you, school board, for having us tonight. I'm Lisa Klingen, and behind me and next to me are some of the most incredible educators and human beings I have got the pleasure to work with. So, we would like to tell you who we are. So, who are we?
We are the Tiger Cubs, mighty, mighty Tiger Cubs! Roar!
That wasn't planned. That was impromptu, you know. I asked how extra was I allowed to be, and that was. Yeah. Oh, my show. How do I project my slides, Missy? Okay. Mm-hmm. Keep going. Yeah, I told them if there was awkward silence, I said if there's awkward silence, or I got real nervous, they were supposed to stand up and do that again. Oh, no. Just share. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like that. There you go. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So when I was thinking about how to describe our school community, I just kept coming back to one word over and over, and that was family. I began my principalship at Meadows in 2019-2020, the best year ever. And even then, I knew I'd been given a gift and a privilege as soon as I walked in the door. The students immediately had my heart, and the staff were among the most dedicated and compassionate people I've ever met. So after a global pandemic and like a couple other like stressful things, it's become clear to me that Meadows has something incredibly special within its walls, and it's our community. So our families and students are at the heart of our school, and this is something that each and every staff member holds in high regard. And I think that people can feel that. So I just said a bunch of great things about us, but I want you to be clear that we know we have work to do to become the best school we can be for our students. I think Superintendent Owen shared our data in the report earlier. Okay, so I'll just summarize this. It's a lot. Okay, so what I shared was the data snapshot, and then we also had an equity audit. So I want to show this. So here you can see that so I'm just going to go over it really quickly because it's a lot. These are the results from our student survey. So the 5 statements that you see up there received the lowest positive rating. Does that make sense? Okay, so those, so the lowest of these was most students in my school treat each other with respect. So that was something that stood out to us. I'll go to attendance. I don't really have a lot to say about attendance except for we know we need to work on it. And then academic progress. So at the beginning of the year, in the areas of math and reading, we had 34% and then 32% respectively of our students at or above their grade level benchmark. So in addition to that, we had the equity audit that was conducted last spring, which I think everyone has seen. And it provided us like an in-depth look at what our school was really strong in. And it was 30 pages, so I'm gonna give you like 2 quick things. The first is our strengths. Our students are loved, and our school has a pervasive, positive, transformational culture. And that's the stuff that we know we need to make everything else work. So our next steps are to continue to build upon structured student talk, which is not just like kids talking, but talking for a purpose. And then to increase the rigor and of the instruction that we provide to kids. So our overall school improvement goals, James told me that they needed to be simplified because they were in paragraphs before. So I sure did it. So the broad overview is that reading and relationships are what we're focusing on. And basically, we want our students to be readers and achieve at or above grade level benchmark. And we want our students to feel like they have positive relationships with each other. So our strategies to do that: increase structured student talk, increase task complexity and rigor, and then I believe you probably have heard about this in other meetings, but we use responsive classroom, the morning meetings, and closing circles, and those are non-negotiables. So every classroom, every day, does those 2 things. I won't go into it, but I'll share this slide deck with you. How are we like checking ourselves with these? Well, we have a walkthrough rubric that is task complexity and rigor and structured student talk. And so I share those results every month, go into as many classrooms as possible. We have weekly PLCs, and our professional development is centered around the culturally responsive, student-centered teaching and learning. Oh, look, I didn't even look at my notes for that. I mean, okay, oh my gosh, it's so fun that the Eagles are here because we have our Big Eagle, Little Eagle mentorship program going, and it is so rad. So a big eagle is paired up with a tiger cub, and it truly couldn't be any like sweeter and brings out like the very best of who they are, and it's really awesome to see. And then the other thing, if you come over and visit us, you'll see that in our cafeteria, which is now just a cafeteria. Hey, thank you, Bond. Okay. We have a mural based on this book called Only One You, Nadie Como Tu, and it's so basically it's about every person being their own individual, but fitting into the community because we're all together. So every student, I don't know if you can see it, but those are rocks. Those little fish right there are rocks, and every student will paint their own rock, and it will go up into our cafeteria. So that, oh, hold on, nope, I'm gonna play. Will it just attach? Missy did the sound, okay. So, our kids are super cute, just saying.
Full of Meadows Elementary,
Oh.
I am humbled to serve our students, staff, and community. Our school staff, from assistants, classroom teachers, specialists, and many others, provide instruction to over 300 students from dozens of countries. There are 19 languages spoken in our global school community.
Can you start the video over, maybe?
As principal of Meadows Elementary, I am humbled to serve our students, staff, and community. Our school staff, from educational assistants, classroom teachers, specialists,
for the record, Albert can attest that I did not set them up to say that. And I also asked them what they would change, and they said nothing. No, but I was like, no, come on, give us some more. But anyway, so, no, next one. Nope. So, thank you, school board. And I just want to ask, is Meadows Elementary good?
No, we're great.
So, wait. Woo! Woo! Okay, so from our family to you, in honor of School Board Appreciation Month, we have brought just like a few tokens of our appreciation for you. Thank you, School Board. Thank you. Of course it's the book! Woo! Thank you so much. They're labels. They're cool.
Yes, everyone's fighting over you. I'm ready.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So much.
I know, well, yeah. There's a little sticker for your water bottle, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Does anybody from the board have any comments or anything that they'd like to share at this point in time? Other than thank you.
Me first. So this beautiful mural, when it is completed, will you send pictures in, or like, I don't know, rocks for your school board members to paint? I'm just saying.
Oh,
So-
you're on the invite.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say I'm grateful and thankful to be part of the Meadows family. You guys have been great to my family, and we hope to reciprocate that, and for, to the end of time. We'll always be there with each other, and we're all part of a village. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Jess. Online, Director Shields or Director Lynn, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
Just excellent work. And of course, I have a heart for Meadows, as the staff might know, with all of my grandchildren having gone through that school. So much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the gifts, completely unnecessary, but we can tell that you're doing magical work there. I know one of the big eagles that is my son, and so he just comes home gushing on those days of how amazing the program is, and just like the things, just little things like getting to play tag on the playground again. So you guys are doing magic there, and thank you so much for coming and sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Principal Klingon, would you like to introduce your staff individually, or would you like them to introduce themselves?
Oh, they can absolutely introduce themselves.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to
you
give
bet.
you the opportunity.
We should start with Janine.
And yeah, maybe you're...
Woo!
Eric Perkins, 5th grade, and currently Keegan's teacher.
Excellent.
Chelsea Mullins, I'm the attendance secretary.
Woo, woo, woo.
Caroline Norman, 3rd grade. Michelle McGregor, the special. Erin Mueller, kindergarten. Sarah Fleury, kindergarten. Kagan's kindergarten teacher. Jenny Lovely, 2nd grade.
Deb Ass, Title I EA.
Erica Fulcher, 4th grade.
Alicia Hollenbeck, EA, as well as method management, and also have children in the school.
Barbara Zaldivar, lead secretary.
And I'm Ben Akers, I'm a 5th grade teacher, and also Keegan's teacher.
Dan.
I'm Daniel Lita, I'm the Sun manager for after school stuff.
Yeah.
Angie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Angie Colantino. I work in the district office. I have a fifth grader and I'm PTO president.
So I just wanted to say, as a proud tiger cub myself, gerbils or whatever you are.
Hey, they are guinea pigs.
Guinea pig.
Stop it.
I just wanted to echo, obviously, the equity audit indicated a transformational culture at Meadows, and that goes without saying. There's just a lot of joy that is evident, not even right when you walk in the door, but before you walk in the door, because there's staff greeting you at that point. And so, as Lisa said in her presentation, that provides a foundation for everything else that needs to be done. And it isn't just reliant on the joyful environment. When I go into classrooms at Meadows, I really appreciate the urgency that I see in terms of the instruction, the engagement that the staff has with students, and the joy and comfortability that students have in being in the environment, being able to take risks in their learning. So that is really evident, and I just appreciate this presentation, not only acknowledging the strengths, but also acknowledging and identifying the areas for growth and being just transparent and explicit about that. So nicely done. Thank you for making your time this evening to come out and do this, and I'll turn it over to Chair Stolowski.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to go ahead and take an 8-minute break. So take 8 minutes and come back if you want. If not, we'll see you later. Thanks for coming.
Recording stopped.
Recording in progress.
And now we're excited to hear some more. So, would you like to introduce this report?
I would. We have our entire curriculum and student learning team here this evening, so we know that this is important and valuable content, and each of them has a piece of this. I had mentioned, if anyone was tuned into the budget work session earlier this evening, that beyond the state school fund, there are a handful of other special funds. This is one new one for this year, starting this year and going forward. It's the Early Literacy Success Grant, and it is similar in terms of how Measure 98 was for high school. This is intended for K or pre-K through third grade. So I will go ahead, before I steal any more thunder, and turn it over to our Director of Curriculum and Student Learning, Maureen Callahan, who can introduce her team.
Thank you, and good evening, Board of Directors. Tonight we'll report on the state-required Early Literacy Success School District Grant application. Each school district in Oregon, including the Centennial School District, is responsible for developing an early literacy plan as part of the Early Literacy Success Initiative for K-3 students. The Early Literacy Plan is approved by each school district's local school board. We'll request your approval later during new business. For now, I'd like to pass it off to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Board. Kendra Hughes, Early Learning Administrator.
Good evening. I'm Jenny Lucas, Curriculum and Student Learning Administrator.
Buenas noches. Sonia Nelson Carranza, English Learner and Federal Programs Administrator.
Thank you. So this evening, our purpose is to provide the details of our district plan to our community. We'll be seeking the board's approval later this evening. Centennial's Early Literacy Plan focuses on students in grades K through 3. The plan will focus on building adult capacity for strengthening belonging and literacy instruction in every elementary school. We want all Centennial students to leave elementary school proficient in reading and writing. We fully support Oregon's two-pronged vision for literacy. Children must have access to consistent, culturally responsive, and research-aligned literacy instruction that guarantees reading and writing proficiency in at least one language. Parents and caregivers must be supported as full partners in their students' literacy development. Elementary teachers must be prepared and supported to identify individual student strengths and needs, and to teach reading and writing in research-aligned ways. This includes creating the conditions for students to effectively learn. We recognize that this will be some significant change for some, and for others, a recalibration, and we're excited to embark on this. The plan reflects our Destination 2027 strategic plan, goals for success, and will specifically impact goal number 1, building a strong foundation, K-3. Our K-3 focus is very intentional during the Jumpstart years because of the formative years for literacy development. The plan submission was due Monday, January 8th, which we have done. ODE does not review these submissions until the board minutes are received. And they are due by the end of February 28th. This allows for us to include any edits and feedback from the board and community. This is our allocation for the next 2 years, and it starts this year. There are 3 distinct areas we are required to target in the plan. Those are professional development and coaching. The second one is extended learning, and the third one is high dosage tutoring. This is considered the Jumpstart year, year 1 of the grant, and it will be an iterative process. The more that we develop and learn and grow, the more that it will expand. next year, by the end of 24-25, it will also become part of the integrated plan that is already in play. Other big ideas is currently we have quality curriculum materials, which we'll talk about later, that are aligned to the science of reading. So where we'll put our resources is really building capacity for our adults to for adult learning materials so that they can deliver these instructional strategies. You do not see in the budget high dosage tutoring because our matching funds of 25% minimum will be from our Title I federal grant. Specifically, our literacy intervention specialist in each elementary school. As part of the extended learning program, we will be building systems along with educator capacity to provide those home-based supports and parent-teacher connections. The plan will also include hiring one certified teacher on a teacher on special assignment titled an early literacy specialist, who will help to coordinate our literacy interventionists, professional learning, coaching, and administrators with the Early Literacy Advisory Committee. Kendra, Sonia, and Jenny will speak more specifically to each of those funding sources or buckets.
Thank you, Mo. Good evening, board. So the first part of this process, step one, was the early literacy program review. We started this process by looking at what we're currently doing. Using ODE's criteria, which the sections are on the slide, we realized that while we have structures in place in different areas, we do not have alignment across the district. We're not seeing practices in different classrooms, let alone the same building. Our new early literacy plan is aligned with Roadmap 27 and focuses on improving instruction and supports for K-3 students, very intentionally. In the first bucket, professional development and coaching, we will form an early literacy committee that will include district and building administrators, licensed teachers, literacy interventionists, classified staff, instructional coaches, English language development teachers, learning specialists, parents, and community members. We're going to hire an early literacy specialist that will work in partnership with our building administrators and who will drive the work. All licensed and classified staff will participate in the science of reading training. The trainings will be designed in a tiered-based way so that we can tap into those who already know about science of reading and those who need to learn about the science of reading. Building administrators and the committee will be monitoring classroom practices to ensure consistent and intentional implementation of the science of reading principles and strategies. My colleague Sonia will talk about the next section, which is extended learning programs. Thank you.
Good evening. For extended learning, we're looking at targeted summer programming, continuing with early kindergarten transition, and continuing with the expansion that we were able to do with a recent grant, the Jumpstart Kindergarten Grant, and extending learning opportunities during summer programming. Also looking at home visits, parent-teacher home visits to build on strong partnerships, and really working on building skill base for effective partnerships. We know that caregivers are our first teachers of our students, and really wanting to be intentional about the work that we're doing together. So thinking about this, starting small and being thoughtful in that expansion. Also looking at home-based supports, looking at literacy materials that represent our students' interests, culture, and language, and being intentional about providing literacy-rich opportunities for our students at home. And my colleague will talk about high-dosage tutoring. Jenny?
Thanks, Sonia, and good evening. As Kendra mentioned, we currently do not yet have alignment of practices across the district. This includes a lack of alignment of our Title I services across our 6 elementary schools. In order to meet the ODE requirements for high-dosage tutoring, we will recalibrate and align our Title I reading intervention services. This recalibration will include an intensive focus on the instructional practices reflected in the science of reading. The simple view of reading breaks the science of reading down into a basic formula of applying letter-sound relationships to read words times understanding spoken language to equal reading comprehension. This simple view of reading makes it clear that strong reading comprehension cannot occur unless Both decoding skills and language comprehension abilities are strong. The Early Literacy Success School District grant requires a review of our early literacy program. All of our core and supplementary materials reflect the science of reading. Our core language arts adoption curriculum, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, or HMH, was adopted in the spring of 2022, and the following elements were at the forefront of our decision to adopt that program. Science of reading alignment, empowering each student to engage in an academically rigorous, culturally responsive curriculum. It's literacy rich, systematic and explicit instruction is included, and opportunities for intellectual risk-taking, productive struggle, and collaborative learning experiences. Our inventory also includes assessments that support student growth in literacy. Centennial School District takes a comprehensive approach to assessment for learning. Data from our interim and summative assessments are disaggregated to monitor instructional effectiveness for historically underserved students. We will rely on the predictability of our assessments to reflect on the efficacy of our instruction and make revisions to instruction in order to increase student learning. Kindergarten through first grade students take the Acadians interim assessment to measure growth in foundational literacy skills, while our second through 12th graders use the STAR Enterprise interim assessment for grade level standards. Beginning in the 24-25 school year, we will replace the STAR assessment with the Acadians assessment for our second and third graders. This will provide continuity for educators as they look at assessment information to make critical instructional decisions and measure student growth from kindergarten through third grade. Intervention assessments include specific measures from Acadians as well as a diagnostic tool from our intervention program called 95% Group. These tools allow us to pinpoint skills gaps and support students to accelerate their decoding skills.
Sorry. So the final section of our plan is our communication plan. We had to be really intentional about the role groups that are on the screen and how we would communicate our early literacy plan. So we will share our plan with different groups in ways that are relevant and culturally appropriate. Strategies include surveys, focus groups, roundtable discussions, community group, website, email, paper newsletter, etc. We also have another category, and so for example, with our school districts, we're going to share, all of us are involved in various cross-district collaborations. And so I'm a member of the Early Learning Administrator Network. So I've been sharing it with that group, hearing from them, what are some things that you all are doing, what are the things that we want to do, and just building strength to support literacy development. We are excited to share the plan across those role groups and have many ideas in play when this comes into practice next year. That is our plan. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much. Director Andrews, and then we'll go Director Harden.
Okay, this is going to sound snarky. What is the definition of high dosage? I understand that we're not doing high dosage tutoring until we have the matching funds from Title X, but when I saw that term, I kind of rolled my eyes. Okay. Anyway, who wants to take that one?
Well, I'll take that one. So currently in our Title I services, we often are meeting with groups of students as large as 6. And some of the groups may only last 15 to 20 minutes. And some of our students stay in our Title I services year after year. So the idea behind high dosage is we have fewer students, so no more than 3. They're in a group for 30 minutes, and we assess them often and exit them when we can. So at least every 10 weeks, we're looking at exiting students so they're back in core instruction. Is that helpful?
It's, I don't know, maybe it's the term, but it makes me think of you got to take your medicine, right? You know, hold your nose. So that, unfortunately, I just have this visceral reaction to that term, and I'm sure none of you are the ones who came up with it, right?
We had this conversation this morning with our principals and Title I teachers, and I just what I had to do to transition that is to really look at the practices. What are the things that we know are best for our kids to learn how to read? And that's the crux of it.
Thank you.
We can call it whatever we want.
Yes, good. Director Harden?
Yes, I had a couple of questions. You know, I believe in having the alignment, and I understand wanting alignment across the community and across all the schools. But schools have different needs as well. So how will you, is there flexibility built into the process, and how will you identify that, and how quickly can you react?
Yes, thank you for that question. Great question. We do have the ability per ODE to identify where are our highest needs. So just to take that into consideration. So we will, and this came up in our discussion today, how will we identify which students have the greatest need and then we'll chart our course to work with them. So that'll happen across the district. So it might not be that we use, every school, 50 students, et cetera. We will go based on need.
Okay.
If I could also add, it's easy to be thinking about the intervention piece, but simultaneously we're also building capacity with our classroom teachers in terms of the core instruction, so that right now I think there's a weighty feel of how many kids need interventions, but we need to look at both prongs. We need to be able to really uplift the kinds of strategies that we know can have an impact in the regular classroom, which will then kind of offset or more connect those two pieces together.
Okay, that helps. My other question was about the parent-teacher home visits. You know, how does that work? And on both sides, like I think of like security reasons for any staff that's going to someone's house. I also think of the household members and how they may react to having a district employee coming to their home. Like how, some people might not be that open to it, and some people may appreciate the help.
And I can answer that. We've been doing parent-teacher home visits in Centennial, particularly with our students that are transitioning into kindergarten, for quite some years. And that has really been sponsored with some county work and some county training, looking at best practice. There's yearly trainings, and part of that is it's also voluntary. It's voluntary on the part of teachers, and it's voluntary on the part of parents. Additionally, we're not targeting students to do home visits, meaning it's offered to everyone and really wanting to do that. So there's training involved. Additionally, our teachers would have the opportunity to go with another person. We always want them to pair up, and looking at compensation there. So trying to really build that up. And right now, preliminary and really thinking about skeletal plans that will build up. And that skill. So it could be that we really focus this next year on this jumpstart with kinder and focusing on growing that to 1 and 2, and then potentially up to 4, 5.
Of course, I have an added comment. Also, just reinforcing that our caregivers of our students are their first educator. And I'm going to continue to bring that forward, and especially with our strategic plan of really wanting to uplift our parent involvement, our community involvement. This gives us an opportunity to do that. And we recognize that we'll want to and need to start small and look for those successes. Your volunteers who want to try this, and then look at what's working, what's not working, and expand thoughtfully. So what we're not going to do is flip a switch and say, go, right? So it's going to be really thoughtful, and the advisory committee will help monitor and adapt as we go.
Thank you. That's great.
I have a question, and I'm trying to figure out the right way to frame this. How do you guys approach change management with the teaching staff as you approach them with a whole new method of teaching? If you've maybe new teachers, or you've got somebody that's like been here forever and is like, but phonics, how do you guys approach that change management across the district, and especially as you're looking at doing that across all schools?
I personally really appreciate that question. It's so much of our work, and we need to continue to learn about the change management piece. We know that if we're lacking in vision, for example, that things are going to eke out in ways, right? We know that if we're not able to provide the proper resources or training, then something else is going to give. So that is the work that the four of us, along with our ad council, will be really monitoring that as we go. And we're going to learn as we go on that. But I am very aware of that. And I see this as a huge opportunity to change the trajectory for our kids with literacy. And so we'll be looking to implement ways that have the potential to sustain. And that means bringing people with us. So that's my short answer, but stay tuned.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot. Thank you. I think that one of the things that I would add is that it's so important to provide a sense of psychological safety for staff as they're coming along this process, and just that allowing questions to come to you with like, is this the right thing, and really leaning into that instead of pushing back to bring people along. I think that this is great work. Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that as well, and I think the other thing is recognizing that our educators and our staff are doing really good things. How do we do it as a system to really accentuate those things so that more kids benefit? And so, but I really appreciate you calling that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, just the final thought, a conversation that we had today with our English our ELD teachers, English language development teachers. We said, we want to do this with you, not to you. So we want to bring teachers along because, they're having the impact in the classroom. So yeah, just bring mindful.
Perfect mindset.
I would just add too that we have instructional coaches who have a lot of training around helping teachers through change process. And so they'll be a safe place for our teachers to land as well as they're working through those.
Thank you.
As someone who's obsessed with the science of reading and teaches it every day, I'm really excited to hear about your plan. I have one clarifying question for my own head, because it's hard to separate different districts' curriculum. So what Centennial is using now, you said meet and ticks the box. For the, what in my classroom I call catch-up and relish time, not high-dosage tutoring, but catch-up and relish is a friendlier term. Is the program tied to, an additional to, a different program? What piece of curriculum are we using for what I call catch-up and relish and the state calls high dosage?
I love that term, catch-up
Thank
and
you.
That is wonderful.
You catch up on what you need and you relish what you know when you grow.
Yeah, we rely on 95% group for our intervention, which ties really well with HMH. It's systematic and explicit, and it's based in science of reading. Yeah.
Looking online really quick to see if there was any questions from directors online. Nope. Thank you guys for your time. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last report on the docket for today is the superintendent report. So at this point, I will turn it over to Superintendent Owens.
Thank you, Chair Solowski. Greetings, board members. It's my pleasure and privilege to share with you this update this evening about our happenings in the district. As was mentioned at the outset of the meeting, January is National School Board Appreciation Month. Centennial School District is joining the celebration along with Oregon's other 196 local school boards, 19 education service district boards, and 17 community college boards. Centennial's board of directors are dedicated and strategic decision makers who have given their time as unpaid elected volunteers to oversee Oregon's public education structure for our district. We're proud to have a unified group of leaders invested in the education of our students, and personally, as I reflect on some of the accomplishments over the last few years in terms of the strategic plan, equity audit, bond projects, comprehensive boundary process, there's a lot of leadership that the board provides and hopefully the community sees. And I did notice on the Centennial Facebook page that the post that Chief Rosales Correa put up with the school board recognition had quite a few likes and engagement. So it does look like there's some recognition for the work that you do. Now, for recognition of the superintendent's update for monthly, we need to kind of get some likes going there, but that's another story. As you know, or excuse me, as board members know, this evening was our budget committee work session where committee members had the opportunity to discuss the district's financial outlook and priorities for the 24-25 budget. I appreciate the engagement of our budget committee in this important process and look forward to working along with Director Southerton to present a draft budget for 24-25 for the committee's consideration in April. So you are going to notice a heavy focus on my report this evening, as evidenced over the next 5 slides, is on facility-related upgrades and improvements. As you will remember, a key finding in the Equity Audit Commission last year was the physical condition of our facilities and how conditions were a deterrent to making students and staff feel appreciated. So it's important for me to report to the board the efforts being made in that regard. The 23-24 school year kicks off the inaugural year of the Classroom Improvement Fund. You'll recall the Board and Budget Committee approved the creation of this fund to support the maintenance of all classrooms and to complete the updating or improvement of 4 to 5 learning spaces where students spend most of their time each day. Over the summer and into the fall, Facilities Director Jason Lafarge and Director Southerton toured every school to evaluate classroom technology, furniture, flooring, ventilation, lighting, and other aspects that impact a learning environment. This data will be used to inform the order in which classrooms are selected for improvement. Beginning with the classrooms that have the lower score on the evaluation scale, we have identified 5 classrooms at Patrick Lynch Elementary to be the first spaces improved with these funds. These include the music room, which is used by every student at the school, as well as both 3rd and 4th grade classrooms. Last Thursday, on January 4th, Director Southerton convened the first of 3 meetings with stakeholder groups, including teachers, the school principal, the facilities department, capital projects manager Scott Rose from R&C Management, and architects from DLR, including Karen Montevino, who facilitated our long-range facilities plan and our facilities plan update process last year, as well as the visioning and design for Oliver and Centennial Middle School renovation projects. The committee will be engaging with additional stakeholders, including students and families, at their next meeting on January 25th. So more to come, but just wanted to give a status update as far as how that fund is materializing. Efforts to be good stewards of our facilities, as well as provide a safe, warm, and welcoming environment for learning, continues across the district, and this extends beyond funding from the 2020 Capital Projects Bond. Over winter break, Powell Butte Elementary received a full, complete professional painting of all hallways and corridors throughout the school. Partnering maintenance funds with the bond and ESSER funds, we were able to bring to life this nearly 65-year-old school. The bond-related aspects of this project included abatement of flooring and polished concrete finish, which you can see in the picture on the right side, and new energy-efficient lighting, which you can see as well. ESSER-funded aspects included the abatement and the replacement of ceiling tiles, which are evident, and the maintenance-funded aspect of the project was the full corridor repainting. So here on the slide, you can see what amounts to a before and after of the projects. Between the ceilings, lighting, flooring, and now paint, it adds up to a big transformation for pre-bond conditions. Powell Butte isn't the only school to receive similar treatment. Park Lane and Patrick Lynch Elementaries each had similar conditions and also received improvements from to the floors, ceilings, and lights. Paint is specific to maintenance, and like the Classroom Improvement Fund, we're prioritizing the building in the poorest condition first. This year we've done CHS, Powell Butte, and Park Lane. This summer and into next year, Meadows, Patrick Lynch, Pleasant Valley, and Butler Creek will receive interior paint to their corridors as well. Paint was included at OMS and CMS in their bond work as part of their overall improvements and updates. That's important to note. The reason the one on the left is tilted is just the way that the image was taken. I wanted to get it straight so you could see a side-by-side comparison there. Centennial School District strives to create safe, secure, and aesthetically pleasing facilities for our students, staff, and visitors. As you know, as part of the below-the-line 2020 bond project, Centennial Schools received updates to their exterior lighting across the buildings, parking lots, and walking paths to ensure these areas are well illuminated. Over winter break, 36 new dual-purpose LED illuminated safety bollards were installed as part of the recent safety and security exterior lighting improvements components to the school. The new bollards replace the previously failing and broken exterior fixtures in front of the main entrance, auditorium, pool, and gymnasium. And if you walk past any of those failing components, they were definitely an eyesore. So kudos to all of those involved in this project. It looks great. As you know, the bond work is wrapping up. Next Thursday, January 18th, is the Bond Oversight Committee's will convene its final quarterly meeting from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Centennial Middle School. The committee will receive updates on the final project closeout and the budget, as well as the third and final annual report that will be presented to the board and to the public in February. Bond Oversight Committee members will also receive a sneak preview of the special 2020 Bond Summary Edition of the report to the community, which will be sent to all district residences. On the screen here, you can see a sneak peek of the cover of the special edition, which is being coordinated by former Centennial Chief Communications Officer Cassie Swenson, who is still in the fold. So more to come on that. Something I've never done is I've have a talking point without a slide, so bear with me here. This is not on the slide, so it's not relevant to what you see on the screen. I'm pleased to announce the Centennial School District was recently awarded the Certificate for Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, or GFOA, for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. The report was judged by an impartial panel to meet the program's high standards, which include demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure, to communicate its financial story, and to motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. So please join me in recognizing our business services team, led by Director Southerton, and of course we could not have done this without the work of the entire team, including budget analyst Betty LeGros, accountant Calvin Delick, accounts payable clerk Margaret Thran, accounts receivable clerk Natalie Martin Perez, payroll clerk Jasmine Inostros, administrative assistant Regina Castro, who was here earlier for the budget committee, and payroll and benefits director Tina Caberhill. So kudos to Director Southerton and team. Now to a topic that I do have a slide for. Today, the District Equity Committee held its fourth work session of 8 scheduled for the year. They began work on revising the equity lens and will design accompanying professional learning to support effective use of the lens. The team collaborated in review, adjustment, and modification of the upcoming district-wide equity module content and slides for facilitation with school and department staff. Their work today is part of a larger plan that includes the following: supporting professional development, reviewing and providing input to specific structures, systems, and practices, supporting professional learning at the school, district, and department level, providing input to improvement plans regarding instructional equity, and reviewing and providing input on the student success plans and team overview, such as the African American Success Plan, the LGBTQ2IA+, and potentially the Ethnic Studies Plan. The District Equity Committee work this year has given us a head start in considering the formation of the future Equity Committee, which is required by SB 732 in the year 2025. Centennial School District is excited to implement Parent Square, our official centralized district communication platform, entirely. The district Remind messaging application sunset Friday, December 15th of 2023. This platform streamlines district messaging to a single source. Ensuring reliable communication channels is vital for our community, and we want our families to know that they can count on us to provide them with tools needed to stay connected with content that relates to them and is easy to use. Parents and guardians are encouraged to register and connect with their child's school via Parent Square, which offers an array of digital communication tools, including email, text, and phone messaging. Parents can find additional information and steps to register under our Parents and Students button on our website, which is featured on the graphic here, by clicking on Parent Square. We also encourage families to update their contact information in Synergy to ensure they have their name, phone number, address, emails, and home language up to date, especially as we enter the winter weather months. Kudos to Chief Communications Officer Albert Rosales Correa for navigating the shift in platforms, which is never easy. Welcome any questions or comments you have about these topics, and that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Comments? Yes, Director Shields.
Just a quick question about inclement weather. When we see, I mean, we always know about snow, right? Because it affects our buses. But the really low temperatures that we may be experiencing soon and or even later, does that factor into attendance at all?
Factor into attendance?
Yes, do students have a more difficult time when it's very, very cold to get to school, because we do have our students walking to school, as well as parents driving them, etc.
Good question. I'm looking at Director Wright right now to see if she has anything off the top of her mind in terms of correlation between weather conditions and school attendance.
There's not specific data that we track based on weather, and in some of our catchment areas, we do have students who have to walk, and depending on time of day and what's happening to the family if they can get rides, there potentially impacts across the year, and so cold weather may be an impact, and those are also families that we try to make sure, do they have jackets, do they have proper shoes, do they have other things that can support that as well, but I don't have that specific information.
Sure. And I saw head nods from Director Shields indicating that she was hearing the response. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Owens.
Thank you.
Next up, let's take a look at confirmation items. We've got, can I get a motion to approve all of the confirmation items?
I make a motion to approve all the confirmation items. But somebody should second it.
I'll second it.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded that we approve all of the confirmation items. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, unanimous vote. We have approved all of the confirmation items. Moving on to, yes, take a minute and open anything that you need. And then we will move on to old business, 7.1.1. Would you like to introduce Director Southerton or?
All right, we have Director Southerton for old business. We have construction management services fee for R&C management, and Director Southerton can explain the basis for the request.
Thank you, Superintendent Owens, and good to be back with you all. So yes, we are fortunate to have received an additional seismic improvement grant for Oliver, as you're aware, and that we anticipate completing in the summer of 2025. Additionally, the student or classroom improvement fund project will be ongoing this summer. We'll also be working on the CTC building, which was recently purchased, and that's all to say that we have a lot of capital projects continuing past the 2020 capital bond that was approved, and we need some additional services. So R&C Management has graciously provided Scott Rose to continue on, and so this is a fee approving that additional compensation to help us manage and flex up for all these projects. So this is broken down to $99,865 for the Oliver Seismic Improvement Project, and then $204,637 for the CTC, classroom improvement, food service, and other capital projects that we'll be completing over this time period. So we do have these projects all combined are expected to be a total budget of $5 to $6 million that will be established by the Budget Committee and the Board. So you can see in relation that this is a large number for a fee, and it will require a substantial amount of time and management to help us to complete these capital projects, and is consistent with their past fee for service. So I welcome any questions you may have, but the administration does recommend the Board of Directors approves the award of additional services to R&C Management Group in the amount of $304,502 and a contract extension through October 30th, 2025.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Yeah, Director Southerton, I heard you say food service. When we were at the dedication of the CHS cafeteria, somebody said something about CMS being the next school. Is there going to be another food service improvement, kitchen improvement or whatever?
That is a fantastic question. Yes, you may recall that we have a phase 2 to do at the high school first, and that's in the kitchen proper. That kitchen is original to 1959, and when you look at it, it reflects that. So while it is clean and safe, it needs to be updated. And so we anticipate approximately $500,000 worth of work in that kitchen this summer, which would include ceiling and lighting replacement, painting, the addition of a freezer, grease interceptor, which filters out the grease that goes through the dishwashers and wastewater and things like that, and a variety of other improvements to the facility. So this includes project management services for all these projects. And, they provide instrumental help in making sure that we get good and competitive prices, keeping our general contractors and the people that are doing the work on track and on time to meet our quick timelines. We have about 10 weeks to do this work in between school years. And then they also help make sure that we're complying with procurement law, competitive bidding, and all the additional requirements that go with construction management. It's instrumental to have these management companies that help districts because we're not set up to do large capital projects regularly and recurringly. We don't have the staff and the expertise internally because we have a bond and we do construction for 2 or 3 years, and then hopefully not long, but years go by until we pass another bond. And so we don't have people on staff when we're not doing those projects. So it is instrumental and very helpful and really allows us to get a great finished product and competitive pricing.
Other questions? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
Motion to approve the contract with RNC Management.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, unanimous vote. We have approved the RNC Management Construction Services Management fee. Moving right along to new business, 7.2.1, Early Literacy School Success Grant.
I'll defer directly to Director Callahan for the presentation.
Thank you. I'd like to formally request approval of the Early Literacy Success Grant, but first would like to take any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. We all had the opportunity to ask questions earlier, so really appreciate that. I don't see anything at this point. I'll go ahead and call for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the Early Literacy School Success Grant request.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 The ayes
Aye.
have it. Unanimous vote. We have approved the Early Literacy School Success Grant.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for all your hard work. Next up, 7.2.2. First read of policies with option to adopt JHC.
All right, Director Wright.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you, and happy School Board Appreciation. Glad to celebrate all of you and appreciate the work you're doing. As you can see, we do have a policy up for adoption, and the bulk of this policy of JHC, Student Health Services and Requirements, really was connected to a policy that was adopted at the October 23rd school board meeting that included new language that was added to policy IGAI around human sexuality, AIDS, HIV, sexually transmitted disease, and health education, as well as there is some additional language in this policy. It is a recommendation that we approve this policy, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. At this time, are there any questions?
Director Lynn raised hand.
Oh, yes, Director Lynn.
Nope.
Oh.
I'm there? Okay. I'm sorry if this isn't, is this an okay time to bring up? I noticed it mentions menstruation, and we had the menstrual drive mentioned in the student report earlier. Is there any update on the legislation that was passed in 2021 around the Menstrual Dignity Act, HB 3294?
Can you say some more? Because as a district, we are implementing the requirements based on that. And so all of our school buildings, all of the bathrooms have accessible products made available. And then we also put in some of our additional funds for specific additional products. And at Centennial High School, they have had a group of dedicated students that are really wanting to ensure this for their peers and are taking additional steps on top of that.
Okay. When I heard that mention, I was wondering how we're not meeting that need and how we can do better. And I guess just to and then the policy, the first sentence, and I hope this isn't like semantic, it seems unnecessary to say, although we're primarily focused on education and then we are also, care about health. Why is the kind of equivocation there? It seems to take away from the statement that we care about their health. So if they would just slash that first part of that first sentence, that just seemed like a good idea to me.
Okay. And that first sentence has been a part of the policy language for many, many years. It's part of our current language for the adopted policy also. I think from OSBA's perspective, they're trying to put both of those things together. And if that is something the board wants us to consider, I'm happy to rewrite that opening sentence if it's needed.
It just kind of strikes me as one of those sentences of like somebody who is passing it but they don't really want to, It's kind of passive aggressive. That's just how I read it. And so just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Shields.
I don't disagree at all with Director Lynn about some of the wording that we see, because it's like they just kind of keep adding things without rereading it in the entirety as you have done and suggest. I would certainly support it. The challenge is that when we get into wordsmithing a little bit on these policies, we get blowback from OSBA. I don't think so in this particular instance that you brought to our attention, but it's been a point of contention. I think it's because we're really good readers and we read for context across the entire policies. What we have done is made notations at the bottom of our policies that differ sometimes. Again, I don't think it differs so much with what you're saying tonight, but it's something we just need to be aware of. They get a little testy about us dealing with their work. My 2 cents.
Appreciate that. Any other thoughts or questions? Do we want to hear a motion either with the change in language or with the language as is? Feel free to present either one to me at this point.
Move that we adopt the policy with the language, the changed language that Director Lynn proposed.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we've got last new business item, board member appointment to OSEA bargaining. At this point, we will be taking a vote to determine if we want to have a board member represented on the district team. And I will go ahead, we're going to just do a quick roll call vote, and so I'll go ahead and get that started. And say that my vote at this time is to not have a representative. And next I will call, we'll just kind of go around the room. Director Andrews.
I vote that we don't have a representative.
Thank you. Director Harden.
I vote we do not have a representative.
Director Stanley?
I vote we do not need a representative at this time.
Thank you. Director Shields?
I vote that we do not need a board liaison at this time.
And Director Lynn?
I vote we do need a board representative. I think it's a very important thing. So
Great. So that leaves our vote at 5-1. And I think we have what we need to move forward. Next up, thank you all very much. Future agenda items.
I'll offer first from my perspective. We've got a second meeting in January that is normally a remote virtual meeting, and we have Powell Butte Elementary School's report. So we have a school report, so that will be an in-person meeting. In addition to that report, we will have the strategic planning implementation mid-year review with Lauren Klafke and team. Director Southerton is queued up to present a CHS Athletics Complex progress review and next steps report. You know, the work that was done over the summer there, and so it will be an opportunity to take inventory and stock of what's been done and where we'd like to head. There's a couple of MOUs with our labor partners and a couple of policies.
Great. Anything else for the good of the order? Announcements?
I have something. I've just been a little concerned. I'm hoping we can revisit our board norms. I think sometimes behaviors and language and ways that responses and questions and things have gone on during the board meeting frustrate me personally, and I think it would be good to have everyone in attendance when we go over what our board communication expectations are and how we will treat each other in conversation and how we will respond. I would like to think that we can all be highly kind and considerate and respectful individuals, but sometimes we need refreshers, I think, on appropriate behavior, and I'd really like to see that happen.
I appreciate that. We'll get that added to a work session where we can revisit our board member agreements. Thank you. Yes, Director Shields.
Just announcing what we have in our new member of our family.
Oh, congratulations.
This is why I'm not at the board meeting tonight. He is wonderful and beautiful and gracious, and I'm holding him, and Daddy's going, be careful with his head.
Yes. Congratulations, Director Shields and your whole family.
Thank you.
What a wonderful addition. Anything else for the good of the order?
At a break during the session,
Please.
I had the opportunity to crack my first thunder egg. It's called a geode. And so I did a pretty poor job of doing that, but I figured I'd feature it. Thank you to Melissa on Board Appreciation Night bringing me something to
And thank you to the custodians who will be cleaning up after them both. No, just kidding. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Oh, yes, Director Shields, I see.
Just a quick question in regard to Director Stanley's question. Are you talking about specifically our what am I trying to say? The agreements? We have our operational agreements. So would we be reviewing that in light of the conversation, or have it as part of the conversation?
Yeah,
Because I'd like to know what part of our agreements maybe not be working appropriately.
Yes, I would like to look at the agreements. I do not remember if everyone was present when we went over those with the very nice man who sat over there, whose name I do not remember. I apologize. But I just think of some recalibration is necessary so that we can continue to have positive relationships. I know people feel passionately about things and get emotional. Sometimes they cry at school board meetings. I don't know who would have done such a thing, but I just think sometimes we have to revisit those to stay on the same page.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else at this point, this meeting is adjourned at 8:55. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Good night, everybody.
take care.